Okay, so about a month ago, Bill 17 hit the order paper when the summer session of the legislature was recalled. Pretty unexpected. There were a huge number of bills tabled at the beginning of the session, and I think it caught quite a few people off guard. The Liberal opposition and the Greens were caught off guard for sure. However, the Liberals quickly formulated a response, sent a bunch of information to Dogwood about Bill 17, and a number of consultants who are paid by Organizing for Change to pay attention to what's going on in the legislature also got in touch and said, look, this is a pretty significant policy change, and of course it directly impacts the local power campaign. So we got involved pretty quick. So the crux of Bill 17 is the government wanted to amend the Clean Energy Act to remove what is called the self-sufficiency clause. And the self-sufficiency clause basically means that BC Hydro has to have on contract enough power that comes from British Columbia to supply British Columbia. And the folks who are okay with the self-sufficiency clause being removed are the people who are concerned about independent power contracts being part of that mix. So going back to 2010, Gordon Campbell changed the Clean Energy Act and started the process of instructing BC Hydro to seek new power purchases from independent producers. And some of those contracts were pretty unfavorable to taxpayers. And the government, I think, was hoping that in removing Bill 6, they would essentially remove the requirement to purchase power that's made here in BC. Now, of course, over time, independent power projects have amounted to 25% of our total supply. So it's a significant amount. And the government was looking at California as a source of new power because there is a large amount of new solar development coming online. So Dogwood's position, which was articulated pretty clearly in the blog, was that, you know, that's not a good strategy to rely on California for a whole bunch of reasons. And this blog actually went pretty viral. It was shared organically. At the time, we had an internal Facebook ban. We were participating in the sort of mild protest against Facebook, so we didn't do any advertising on this blog, but it turned out to be probably our most widely shared piece of communication probably in a couple of years. We also built an action page which allowed folks who read the blog and who were upset to contact their MLA. And we started getting a whole pile of feedback to the blog organically on the page and into our email system. The upshot was that over 1,600 people wrote letters, and it definitely woke the Greens up, who at this point were swamped by all the bills on the order paper. It woke up a number of First Nations who realized that Bill 17 would also restrict any new power that they might produce going into the future. And the collective response has meant that this bill is, according to Andrew Weaver, done. It's not going to see the light of day. Finally, the Greens signaled that they wouldn't support it, and in the meantime, Andrew Weaver had tabled some amendments, which we can look at in a second. I think the unexpected part for us at Dogwood was a ferocious response to people who were okay with the self-sufficiency clause being removed. And these are predominantly people who are very antagonistic towards IPPs, independent power producers, and who don't like the fact that some of those contracts pay them, very generous rates for their power. And sometimes these independent power producers are producing power at a time that we don't need it. So I wrote a second blog in response to that called Loss in Transmission. And I think my point boils down to this. Energy in BC is construed by people as coming from electricity, when in fact the majority of it, as Peter points out, comes from fossil fuels. And that hasn't changed in decades. We're still a society powered by fossil fuels, and the amount of energy in totality that's produced by independent power producers is less than 5% of our total mix. So people being up in arms about 5% of our electrical or 5% of our total energy produced by independent power producers, when 77% of our fossil fuel energy is entirely controlled by not only private companies, but foreign companies and out-of-province companies, none of which are headquartered in BC. So my point was to remind people that the bigger conversation is not around whether electrical energy is privatized, but how our total energy system is privatized and how we might change that. So going back to the second reason why I think Bill 17 was tabled, I think there's a lot of evidence that, and most of you probably realize this, that Site C is turning into an even worse financial nightmare than it already was. And the primary platform piece of the provincial NDP is to make life affordable. It's their campaign slogan. It is sort of at the top of their policy pyramid. Everything that they do has to run through this re-election slogan, which is that they've followed through on their commitments to make life affordable for British Columbians. And Site C is an anchor weighing that promise down. So a couple days ago, first of all, BC Hydro released an interim report to the Utilities Commission saying that we actually can't submit our quarterly report. We really don't know what's going on, and they raised a pile of red flags about geotechnical stability and signaled that major cost overruns were coming our way. And this is already on top of what is projected to be a $12 billion project. The word boondoggle is not strong enough of a term. This is going to be a financial disaster. And I think Bill 17, in the elimination of the self-sufficiency clause, basically would allow PowerX to buy power stateside without any restrictions. And they made the mention in Bill 17 about defining clean energy and making sure that we buy clean power. But the fact is, there's no way to tag power as clean when it comes through PowerX. It's not regulated by our government. It's regulated by international trading rules. There's no requirement to disclose what the source of the power is in terms of whether it's carbon free or not. Bill 17 would free BC Hydro and PowerX to simply import the clean power or not just any power that they need to offset the costs of what will be very, very expensive power from Site C. So I'm just going to quickly stop and take some questions on Bill 17. Go ahead, if anyone's got questions on it.
I just wanted to clarify something. So you said that 77% of energy in BC comes from out of province suppliers?
Yes, because all our fossil fuel energy suppliers are from Alberta or other countries.
Okay.
I would, it's Peter Nix. I'd like to point out that in a meeting with the North Carolina Climate Change Committee this last week, notwithstanding that all this stuff that Dave has pointed out has happened since this, one of the key strategies of North Carolina is to have independent local power generation. So we got that. Another wave riding this push that we're trying to get going.
Okay. All right.
Dave, Chell here.
Yep.
You can hear me?
Yes.
So I'm sorry I didn't read your blogs, but I like your summary. Did you get any particular feedback on your second blog?
Not as much. We didn't do a whole pile of sharing on that. I pretty much used it as a response piece to people who were sort of writing into our email list. I just said, look, here's where I'm trying to go with this. Read the second blog for clarification.
So the one kind of arrow that the public has and we have is just to call for transparency. Like, if people aren't happy with government policy or things like past contracts or the secrecy that hydro operates under, we can say it's time to be transparent. And instead of like going directly at it, trying to argue for independent power production, we can say, how can we ever know if the government has secret contracts? Like, this is a suggestion for tactic.
Okay.
To try to divert people from, and we don't want to be cornered into trying to defend terrible contracts, and I think the answer is just transparency. It's what's ruining BC Hydro, like the fact that they've been able to keep Site C in the dark so well that, past the point of no return bullshit. And yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, for sure. I think we also need to redefine what an independent power project is. There's a lot of baggage with that word, and those older run-of-river contracts that were built, or generation systems which were built a decade ago using different technology. I think there's room for debate how expensive they actually are when they were, actually forced to protect fish habitat during construction, as opposed to our larger legacy dams, which eliminated fish habitat in construction. So, there's definitely debate about that. But I would say that today's power projects are so much radically cheaper that we need to be careful when we're using that IPP term. We don't want to conflate a legacy IPP with a modern IPP. David?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody here or anybody here gets the updates from BC Hydro. So I got a newsletter from BC Hydro which tells you all about energy saving tips and that kind of thing. But also there was a link to a short video that they put out that seems like it was developed in opposition to our push for local clean energy generation, and that they touted how wonderful BC Hydro was and how the trading with PowerX made it so that at some times of certain days, certain times of year, BC Hydro or PowerX was actually getting paid to accept electricity from other jurisdictions. So, the price was less than zero when there's a flood of energy on the market. But I guess I would maintain that anytime BC Hydro imports power into our area, it is facilitating the generation of non-renewable energy sources somewhere in the North American grid. So if we're bringing power in from California, you could argue that some of it is clean power, but it means that maybe in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Montana, they're able to pump up their coal production or maintain their coal or other fossil fuel generation capacity. So I would think that in the perfect world, BC Hydro PowerX would never do anything but export power, and then we would be, not only would we meet all of our needs with renewable energy, but we would be continuously offsetting fossil fuel generated power in other jurisdictions. So, and there's no argument against that. If you were in a position where you never had to buy power, it would only be a win situation, because you'd ever only be selling a commodity. You'd never be purchasing a commodity, and you wouldn't have that argument as to whether or not it was clean power or dirty power. Anyways, just some thoughts.
Good point.
Yeah, they're good points. Yeah, I saw that video. At the end of the meeting, I'll share the links to sort of that BC Hydro promotional video, maybe, and I'll share, the blog links and the links to the Utilities Commission report and a few other articles. So I don't need to worry about taking notes about those particular things. I'll share them around.
Yeah, just one quick point so it doesn't get lost. Yeah, I think the framing of the Californication was very effective, probably the best message to lead with. I think as a technical detail, I would say that nothing in the language of Bill 17 actually prohibitively expresses us from importing all sorts of electricity from Alberta. And Alberta has probably the dirtiest grid, I would almost certainly in Canada, maybe all of North America.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50% natural gas right off the top. And there's a whole bunch of coal and other fossil stuff in there. And I would just also like the interties between BC and Alberta are significant. There's a very large capacity, comparable or even larger in some cases than the U.S. intertie.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see I'd see there's a bit of a risk that if this debate plays out as purely a U.S. BC sort of debate, that imports from Alberta will not get a proper scrutiny. But I'm saying they should deserve the same scrutiny because that is very dirty power.
This short video, Wade, in response to that, it actually mentioned the imported electricity from Alberta, and it said that only 3% of our electricity imports come from Alberta, which really surprised me, but they were very specific in that number. So I would imagine that it's a defensible number, but amazingly low in regards to what my concept of the power trading was. But yeah, that's what they said, 3% of our imported electricity.
Comparable. Yeah, but I mean, historically, that's actually shocking because it was not normalized until even the last few years that there would be any power flowing from Alberta, like any net power flowing from Alberta to BC. Because I mean, it's kind of insane. Like we have these hydro dams, they have not, or they're very few. So it's
Yeah. It's a high number. 3% is high, and if you think about 3% from Alberta, 3% from Montana, 3% from North Dakota, 3% from Idaho, they're all coal or gas facilities in any of those jurisdictions, and we're importing power from all those jurisdictions at the moment.
The thing is that there is no record because this is all Power X. So we actually BC Hydro can make up these numbers to the heart's content, and we actually have no way to verify what's going on.
I'm yeah. So to that, Tom, I'm trying to figure out ways of correlating the way, like the balance of power generated at any point in time. There's these daily sort of records of ACO. ACO is the Alberta utility, and I'm not trying to put like an exact number on it, but I think it's possible. I may be wrong, but my hope is that it's possible to put a lower bound, so that if we can say that it's at least as dirty as this, then they don't really have many places to hide. Because I mean, it's mathematically impossible for it to be cleaner than a certain amount of maximum clean capacity that they have, which is shocking, which is like strikingly low in Alberta. They talk a big game about their wind, but and there are some new projects being developed there, and ironically they have tremendous wind and solar potential. But yeah, so I think that I think it's worth looking into if we can put some numbers against this stuff. But yeah, they will mystify and obfuscate like to as much as they can. But we need to call them out on that if we can.
Okay, well, let's make that an action item to follow up on that, because there's also the federal energy trading numbers, which track the exchange between us and the U.S., and I'll share those as well. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I'll just quickly talk about Weaver's amendments, and then we'll go on. So, yeah,
Sorry, Dave, can I cut in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we make an action item, an easy action item? Can you create a Google Doc uh, word processing file where we can put in some fact checking to that video in particular.
Okay.
It'd just be nice to have a centralized place, and I guess it'd be nice if we could transcribe that video. I guess if anybody feels that they have some time, transcribe
Sure.
that video and lay it out in a table, and then we should all pile on and just throw our 2 cents in so that we have our own little database, because I think that would be helpful. In an ideal world, we would have like Professor Fact Checker video and
Yeah.
and
Well,
just
we should actually create our own video.
exactly.
So I'll do that, Chell. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on Bill 17, other than to say, from the perspective of watching it unfold in the political arena, the Greens really failed in their job. They just came out and basically said they wouldn't support it, whereas Andrew Weaver came up with some very sensible amendments, which were supported by the Liberals. All it would have taken would have been one of the Greens to signal that they would support those amendments, and instead of withdrawing the bill, because the bill did have a few good elements to it, Weaver's amendments actually would have fixed it up quite nicely. The Greens are really, unfortunately, in disarray and unable to mount effective opposition right now, and that's just a note for an unfortunate missed opportunity. So these amendments that are on my screen can be read on the order paper in full, and anyone who wants a bit more info about that, just email me and we'll do it. So this the Bill 17 response and a new sign-up page has helped me to start growing teams based on this issue. I think it's created a bit of a buzz, and there's some appetite for more people to get involved. And I think this is actually, this is not a relevant slide. Yeah, sorry. Here's a new sign-up page that we've got on our site, and some of you have used this. We got, after the blog was released, we had 36 people come in and sign up. So I just want to talk a little bit about growing local power teams where you live. Like, when you find someone who is interested in this issue, how you can sort of recruit them to join this growing cohort of people. And basically what we want people to do is get to this sign up page, enter their data, and then they get some tags which denote that this is what they're interested in, and I can see them in our organizing digital system. So right now, this is the new signups. We've got people in Williams Lake and Nelson and Cranbrook and Kelowna, in Penticton and Kamloops, looks like out by Maple Ridge, the Lower Mainland, Southern Vancouver Island, up in the Courtney Comox area. So some really neat growth happened in the past couple of weeks, and that all links to our digital organizing site, and I'll send the link out. You don't need to track that. So the way to get a recruiter ID happening is, I'm just going to quickly go to our site and show you how to do it. Bear with me. Come on. All right. Can everyone still see the organizing page?
Yep.
Okay. So our local power petition is on this page, or the sign up space. It's under Take Action. And when you sign up to this, under Start Organizing, you're going to get an identification. And the way to make this work together and recruit someone to sign up that on local power is to just simply copy the question mark part on. And come on, computer. Sorry. And paste it to the URL here. Okay, so take that out. I know this is kind of complicated here. So if you were to take this and copy that link to this page with your own recruiter ID and share it with a friend, we would know that you were starting to build a team in your neck of the woods, and it will help us to grow this campaign out. Now, I'll send links about how to do this. I know this is kind of some digital funny business, so to speak, but this is how our digital organizing system works. We're using a program called Nation Builder, and it's based on recruiting and sharing information. And if you're able to, I will give people some instructions, but I just want to introduce the fact that the local power campaign is growing, and we're getting signups from all over BC at the moment, and that's a good thing. Okay, let me get back to the slides here.
So Dave, would
Can I just
people
make a
be
comment
applying-
about your sign-up sheet?
Yes.
It says the emissions are double the world average or global average. It's one of those things that I know that it's very clear and concise to those of us who are aware of it, but I think that it looks a little foggy. It's like the kind of thing that that you see on government websites or sites where they don't want you to know the full picture. I think what it means is per capita emissions, but it doesn't say that.
Okay.
And I think that's what you mean. I think it would be helpful if it clearly stated that in that sign-up sheet.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, so yeah, the idea is for anyone who wants to start building like a local power team where you live is to share that page by email to a friend. And, if you can put your recruiter link into that page URL, that will be helpful. And I can show you how to do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about PACE now. And since I don't have any slides, I'm just going to stop this presentation and tell you what's happening with PACE. So PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's a climate action financing tool that allows home and business owners to finance their fuel switching enterprise. So if a homeowner or a business owner wants to stop using fossil fuels and replace that fossil fuel with a clean source, obviously that's a renovation or a retrofit that costs a fair bit of money. PACE is a program that gives interested parties access to affordable financing to make that switch. Started in California in 2008, and it's if we look at things like rebates and retrofits and the money that the credit that government gives you to scrap your car or a rebate for an electric car, these are all kind of considered climate action financing tools, but PACE is certainly the most comprehensive. And in British Columbia, an organization was formed called PACE BC. Dogwood joined it, and its membership includes fellow members of NGOs like Force of Nature and Iron and Earth. It includes municipal councillors from Courtenay and Port Moody. It includes people from the BC Sustainable Energy Association, planners from all across BC, someone from the Vancouver Economic Commission and Building Owners and Managers Association. In short, it's a broad coalition of people who want to see PACE happen. And the milestone that we've most recently reached is a renowned lawyer, Don Lidstone, who prepares and has prepared major pieces of legislation like the community charter. He's very well known, very high profile lawyer who is concerned and has great expertise in the area of municipal affairs, has prepared draft legislation that would enable a Made in BC PACE program. And so that's why I'm holding off on going into great detail, because this legislation is imminent. Our steering committee will meet this Friday. We've got a couple proposed tweaks to it, and we anticipate being able to share this draft for sure by September at the very latest, but probably within the next couple of weeks. So what would happen if we pass PACE and we've met with enough government officials to, there's enough political support for this that it is possible that it could happen before the next election, if the election holds to the schedule in October of next year. If draft legislation came to pass, and an enabling body would be set up and a province-wide PACE program could be implemented that would allow any municipality to opt in. And when a municipality opts in, that means any homeowner could apply for a PACE retrofit loan, put solar panels on their roof, put a heat pump in to replace their gas furnace, and pay their loan installment once per year when they paid their property taxes. So it's a very efficient way to allow a very large-scale retrofit movement to start. And as many of you probably know, 40% of the emissions in BC come from the built environment, whether that's gas furnaces in homes or the gas systems that heat office towers or sports stadiums or greenhouses or factories. PACE gives the owners of those buildings the opportunity to finance the retrofit, which would allow them to remove the fossil fuel heating system and replace it with a 100% electric one. PACE also covers things like efficient windows and efficient insulation, and we may try to expand it to include like installing electric vehicle chargers and doing earthquake proofing. So there's a number of areas that it can apply, and all those details will come out soon. Take some questions. Jane. You're on mute, Jane.
Does it include commercial buildings like schools and things like that?
Yeah, there's two tiers to the program. There's residential PACE, and then there's commercial PACE. And I'm not sure, as they're owned by the government, probably not. But any sort of commercial enterprise, a factory or a shopping mall or an office tower would be covered.
Thank you.
So Dave, are people who want a heat pump but are using baseboards, are they excluded?
Nope. The person who assesses the PACE loan might say that there's some, the program would have some criteria. If you've got all baseboards, they might say, well, the best opportunity is for you to actually put solar panels on your roof. So I think all those finer details about what the precise criteria would be to qualify for the loan would be worked out as the program gets built in consultation with contractors, etc. Do you have a concern?
Well, it's I know the Clean BC doesn't give any rebates for the people, say the Gulf Islands, who don't have natural gas. We don't get any rebates for swapping out baseboards, even though people are going to save sometimes 30-40% on their bill, and it's a huge energy efficiency win.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to see it. Like, the principle of displacing fossil fuels is kind of number one, but the fossil fuel isn't an option. it's a shame not to support, you know, another great upgrade.
I'm pretty certain that efficiency is sort of one of the core principles in the bill. So I think if you can, you know, I'd imagine there'd be some sort of criteria. You demonstrate an improvement of, you know, say 20%, and you qualify for the loan, something like that. But yeah, there's a fair bit of language around efficiency in the bill as written.
Great. Yeah, just keep your eye on that. That would be awesome. Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note. Any other questions on PACE?
By the way, the same applies to switching from wood to heat pumps.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I saw wood in there, so maybe that's maybe something I should flag. Thank you, Tom. Jill. So yeah, as I mentioned, we've met with Bruce Ralston, George Heyman, Selena Robinson, Carol James. I think in the most recent announcement, the government indicated they had $410 million, or no, sorry, $4.5 million set aside for retrofits. So this is what a PACE program would do independent of government. A PACE program would allow people to access private capital, lenders, you know, such as a credit union or an insurance company or a pension fund would provide the capital and would be taxpayer funded. That's one of the great appeals of PACE. And to give you an indication of what the sort of difference in scale, you know, Clean BC has to meet its targets for buildings. Clean BC has to retrofit 30,000 homes a year. And the government this year announced, I think it was, don't quote me precisely, but $4.5 million to go towards retrofits, and that covers 410 homes. You know, so they're 29,500 short, and you know the governments are going broke with COVID, and imagining the taxpayer funding this type of retrofit, I can see why all of a sudden there's some newfound support in the halls of power for something that includes the private sector in climate action financing. All right, we're at 9 minutes to go. Any general questions on building local power teams, Bill 17, or PACE, or anything else? Jane, go ahead. Oh, you're still on mute, Jane.
Wasn't there mention of BC Hydro being one of the lenders?
You know, the legislation does not restrict who could be a lender. So BC Hydro could provide the way this legislation is written. They would have to, yeah, they would have to provide that finance.
That's great.
There's no restrictions.
So I want to flag an opportunity issue. The final decision of the BCUC and the net metering amendment opened the door to virtual net metering. And so I've drafted a letter to BC Hydro saying basically we need to be consulted on virtual net metering in all its forms, and I haven't delivered that yet, but the commission also scolded BC Hydro in their failure to consult, and so we're hoping there's a bit of pressure on Hydro to do a proper consultation. In the spring, there's going to be another hearing where we have the potential to get community net metering in that hearing. And if we can get a fulsome consultation, we might actually be able to get it on the agenda. And that would be a big accomplishment for a few years of trying to do this. So we will proceed with that as the BC Community Solar Association, but there's also a requirement for BC Hydro has to produce another net metering evaluation report by the end of October. So there isn't a ton of time to do these consultations. However, the interesting thing is that BC Hydro is been instructed to include any input from customers into net metering in the new report. It's a way for BC Hydro to, or the commission to get a read on what people want and what people are saying, to try to see if there's any problems. And BC Hydro is fairly transparent with reporting that. But of course, who knows that that's a thing and that's an issue, and that they should speak up and say they want to participate in community solar and they don't want to be excluded from net metering, and they want some kind of community net metering. So my thought is Dogwood should seriously consider trying to encouraging people to give Hydro that feedback so it can make it into the next report and become a part of the official record. I mean, this is the only way we can, this is one known way to apply some pressure and make it a thing. So
Okay. What Chel's talking about for folks who are new to this is net metering is the system where if you have a solar array or some other renewable source on your property, your power generation offsets your consumption. And it's a program run by Hydro, and a recent decision sort of rolled back some of the benefits that encouraged people to put renewable energy systems on their homes. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. This process would be run by the Utilities Commission, not through the Phase 2 review or any other BC Hydro process.
yeah, the upcoming forum at the commission is it's a whole big dance between the utility and the BC Utilities Commission. It's called the Integrated Resource Plan.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it's like the very best place for us to be, but it is the only place for us to be. And the main thing is to try to influence this next net metering evaluation report end of October, and show that net metering needs to be improved to make it fair to the people who can't afford property, all the people who are excluded, and also try to shape it so that the projects are local community projects.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should try to do that. Oh, we just lost Chell, looks like. Peter, did you have something to say?
Let's keep in mind the fact that my solar farm now, I sell $4,000 of electricity to BC Hydro. If I could sell shares, we could have other people buy shares and they could be virtual net metering. I don't know if that's the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse or what it is, but somebody smarter than me, like you, Dave, maybe can figure out whether if we tried to do that, whether that would apply pressure to BC Hydro to rethink this whole shitbag of restrictions.
Yeah, I think that's what Chell was implying, was that in the setback that the Utilities Commission gave to net metering, they did open the door to sharing panels between meters. And yeah, so I think
actually,
yes, go ahead, Tom.
You got to read the BC Utilities Commission conclusion very, very carefully, because they say, yes, we are BC Hydro should consider virtual net metering, but the way they define it is actually wrong. They do not look at virtual net metering, they look at aggregate net metering. Aggregate net metering is what someone like UBC will do. They have a solar farm somewhere and they have all these other meters. So they aggregate all those meters.
Right.
And so, but what we really want is something like Peter buying a solar farm and then selling shares.
Okay.
So there's one meter, but the income from the farm has to be distributed over different people, owners, co-owners, whatever, either in kilowatt hours or preferably in kilowatt hours, not in money. And so we have to make very, very sure that what the BC Hydro looks at is actually virtual net metering, because that is good for the community, whereas aggregate net metering is good for municipalities, nobody else, or some big businesses. So what we want is community net metering, also known as virtual net metering. So we got to be very, very careful looking at the BC Utilities Commission decision, because they're leaving the door open for BC Hydro just to take this and saying, oh yeah, this is not virtual net metering. What we're actually doing is aggregate net metering. We're screwing people like Peter or any community that wants to have a solar farm. So.
Okay, well, it sounds like the integrated resource plan is the place to do that. So I'll follow up with Chell and get some more information about what the opportunity to comment might be. So we're about at time. Maybe just do a quick final checkout round. Let me know if there's anything that I didn't cover that you'd like more information on. And as I said, I will send a pile of links out to all the attendees on the call. So let's start Jane, then we'll go Tom and Jay Hong and Sabra.
No, I'd just like to thank you so much, Dave, for putting this on and clarifying some things, and really look forward to the PACE legislation.
Get up. Tom? You're mute, Tom.
I always appreciate what you do, and but with the Bill 17, what is the status right now, and is there anything that we can do to? I mean, where is this now? Is this dead?
It's dead.
Is this not going to come back in a different form?
It might in the next session. But this,
okay.
For this session, for all intents and purposes, this bill will die when the session ends.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Jehan?
I hope what we are doing right now will give a positive impact on next year's election.
Okay, that's a tall order. We'll do our best. Sabra?
It's great to have that update. It's been a long time since I've heard what's happening now. I'm stuck back where they were making river diversion projects.
Okay, thank you. Roz, then Wade, then David.
Hi, yes, thank you. I've learned a lot this morning, and thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you, Roz. Wade?
Oh yeah, no, thanks. It's great catching this update. Nothing more to add at the moment, but yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you. David?
Hi there. Yeah, I'd like to say thank you again to you, Dave, and Dogwood for taking up this torch, and also thanks to the new faces that have joined our little merry band. I would just like to point out that having the Bill 17 die is probably not a bad thing, because there was a number of changes in the NDP were trying to put forward that we were opposed. And I sent you a link, Dave, about the Green Party response and a list of the proposed amendments that the Green Party put forward as well, which were similar, probably maybe a little bit more expansive to the Weaver ones, but I do take a small exception to your suggestion that that the Greens were at fault for having done this, because they wanted to debate the bill. They wanted it to be brought forward. They were working with the Liberals, and they wanted to make some progressive amendments to this bill. So they were doing their job as politicians, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, there isn't really another party that is interested in long-term sustainability of citizens of the planet, apart from the Greens. So, I think that criticizing them is certainly appropriate, but I'm not sure if the criticism was fair. So I would appreciate it if you followed up on the links that I sent you, and then just let me know your thoughts on those, because I do have Sonia's ear on occasion, and if there is things that we the people think are being done wrong in the legislature by the Greens, I would like to pass those along to her. Thank you.
Fair enough. Criticism accepted. Peter, close out with you.
Well, I'd just like to remind you, especially Dave, that I think your blogs are really good. I think I would like to help you get them into the black press system, because the Cowichan Citizen is certainly interested in an investigation of BC Hydro, and I think we should really work on that.
Okay. How many words? Do you know what the word limit is for black press?
Well, 500-600 words. You gotta keep it to about that.
Okay. All right. Well, we're a few minutes over time. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending, and keep an eye on your inbox. I'll send a bunch of links out, and I'll also include David's counterpoints from the Greens with their statement in those links as well. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time. We'll probably meet again in another probably 3 weeks. Bye for now.
Good job, Dave. All right.